but with. Imagine for a moment that your mind is not merely a collection of thoughts, but a vast, echoing chamber where the universe whispers in metaphors. That every silence you've endured, every heartbreak, every awkward pause between words, was not a mistake but a part of a deeper rhythm, a divine choreography unfolding in time. Love, but with, you see, does not begin with the right phrase, nor end with the wrong silence. With. It begins where your soul becomes still enough to listen. To her, to the moment, to the music beneath the noise. These phrases we explore are not tricks, but keys. Small, potent spells that unlock resonance, truth, connection. Not to manipulate, with, but to remind her and you that we are not strangers in this dance. We are stardust reaching out to recognize itself in another, with. And perhaps all you ever needed to say was already pulsing quietly in the space between your words. Most people think that love begins with grand gestures, clever words, or carefully crafted lines designed to impress. With. But that is merely the surface, the glitter on the tide. What moves her is not the phrase itself, but the presence behind it. You see, when you speak from the heart, you are not delivering information. You are extending an invitation into a moment, with, into awareness, into truth. And that is why the first phrase, though simple, has the power to unlock something timeless. I see you. Not just with your eyes, but with the fullness of your being. Not as an image to possess, but as a mystery to witness. For the truth is, every person longs to be seen, not judged, not compared, not fixed, but seen in their raw, unfiltered essence. With, when you say, I see you, and mean it with your body, your tone, your stillness, you are doing something few ever do in this world, but with. You are mirroring the divine back to itself. It is not a matter of seduction. It is a matter of recognition, with. Because at the deepest level, what she is searching for is not a man who tries to impress her, but one who can feel her, with. One who isn't racing ahead to his next sentence, but is resting fully in the moment, as if time has paused for this one sacred exchange. Now here's the secret most never grasp on. Seeing her doesn't begin with her. It begins with you, with your capacity to be present, to be still, with, to stop running from your own mind. The reason we fail to see others is because we are too busy avoiding ourselves. But when you quiet the noise inside, even for a breath, you create space. Space wide enough to hold another soul without condition, with. And in that space, your words become less important than your presence. So when you look at her and say, I see you, let it come from a place beneath language. Let it rise from the silence that existed before your first breath, with. Because in that moment, you are not just a man trying to impress a woman. You are a mirror reflecting her forgotten light. And something in her will soften, not because she is being seduced, but because she is being remembered. You must understand, with, we are all starving. Not for entertainment, not for perfection, but for realness. For someone to sit across from us without a mask, with. When you offer that kind of attention, undivided and unhurried, it's as if you're saying, you don't have to perform here. You can just be. And that is when the heart opens quietly, without needing permission. The irony is, the more sincerely you see her, the less you need to say, because the energy behind the words does most of the speaking. Your eyes, your silence, with your calm awareness. These are the true languages of the soul. And when she feels them, she will lean in, not to hear your next line, but to feel more of you. So, don't speak to impress, speak to reveal. Speak as though the moment itself is holy, with, as though nothing else exists outside this instant. And when you say, I see you, mean it so deeply that the universe itself listens, but with. Because love is not something you get from another. It is something you awaken in both of you through presence. With. And presence begins with a phrase that is less about words and more about truth. Let your words become a doorway. With. Let your silence hold the key. And never forget, what she falls in love with is not what you say, with, but the infinite stillness you speak from. It's a strange thing, isn't it? We spend so much of our lives trying to be strong, to appear certain, unshakable, impressive. We armor ourselves in wit, in charm, but with, in the polished reflections of who we think we're supposed to be. But there's a quiet paradox at the heart of love. With, the more you try to appear flawless, the harder it is for someone to truly feel you. With, because what opens the door to real connection isn't perfection, it's vulnerability. There's a phrase, simple yet disarming, with, that speaks straight past the mind and into the heart. With you, I feel safe to be myself. Those words carry no agenda. They're not trying to sell anything or seduce anyone. They are an offering, a soft confession that says, here I am. But with, I've put down the mask, you can too. In a world where everyone's playing a role, but with, performing a version of themselves for approval or praise to meet someone who doesn't need to play. That's rare. But with, that's magnetic. Because when you express vulnerability, not as weakness but as truth, you create space for her to exhale. With, to drop the weight of expectation, to relax into something that feels like home. And yet, it takes immense courage. With, not the kind of courage that charges into battle, but the kind that sits quietly with discomfort. With, that lets the heart speak even when the ego trembles. Because the ego wants control, it wants certainty, it wants to be admired. But the soul, it simply wants to be known. But with, when you say, with you I feel safe to be myself, you're not asking for approval. You're allowing presence. With, you're sharing a piece of yourself that says, I don't need to be more than I am in this moment, and neither do you. With, that kind of presence becomes a sanctuary not just for you, but for her. And what happens next is not theatrical. It's subtle, but with, like a shift in the wind. You begin to notice the softening in her shoulders, the quiet awe in her eyes, but with, because she can feel something real happening. She's not being performed to. With, she's being invited into a moment that is alive and unscripted. That's when something ancient wakes up inside her, something deeper than attraction, a resonance. But remember, this phrase only works when it's true. You cannot fake safety, but with, you cannot rehearse realness. It comes when you've made peace with your own humanness. With, when you've stopped waging war against your imperfections. Because the moment you accept yourself, with, you unconsciously give her permission to do the same. And isn't that what we're all quietly yearning for? Not someone to impress us, with, but someone with whom we can finally put the mask down. Someone with whom silence feels full, not awkward. With someone with whom we don't have to become lovable. We simply are. So this phrase, with, this soft surrender, it's not about gaining love. It's about creating a space where love can emerge naturally without force. A space where both of you are not performances or projections, but presences. And from there, with, love doesn't have to be chased. It flows. Let her see not just the parts of you that shine, but the ones that tremble. With, let her feel the humanity in your voice, the truth in your hesitation, the beauty in your openness. With, that's where connection lives. In the places we thought we had to hide. Say it not to impress, but to invite. Not to win her, but to witness her. And in doing so, you might both remember what love truly is, with two unguarded hearts meeting each other for the very first time, without needing to be anything but real. There are moments in life that feel strangely familiar, like stepping into a conversation you've never had, but somehow already know. With, A glance across a room, a passing smile, and something in your chest stirs if it's been waiting lifetimes to remember. That feeling isn't fantasy. It's not something you fabricate with charm or cleverness. It's a remembering, a recognition with. And the phrase that unlocks that ancient door is this: there's something about you that feels familiar. Now, you must understand, this isn't a line. It's not a trick. It's not about trying to impress her by sounding mystical with. It only works when you actually feel it. When something inside you awakens in her presence, not as excitement, but as stillness, with, like your soul has stumbled across a note in the song of life that it already knew by heart. When you say this, you're not declaring knowledge, you're confessing wonder, and that's a powerful thing. Because wonder is rare in our world, but we've become so used to labeling, categorizing, explaining everything away that we forget how to simply feel with. But when someone looks at you, pauses, and says, but with, there's something about you that feels familiar. They're speaking from that deep, with, timeless part of the self that exists beyond logic, the part that remembers what the mind has long forgotten. With, what you're really saying is, you are not a stranger to my being. That in this vast and seemingly chaotic universe, with, out of billions of people and countless possibilities, this connection stirs something meaningful. Not because it fits some checklist, but because it resonates. And resonance, my friend, cannot be manufactured. It can only be revealed. Think of tuning forks, but with. When one begins to vibrate, another across the room begins to hum. Not because they touch, but because they share a frequency. That's what you're pointing to. Not physical attraction, not clever compatibility, but vibrational memory, a kind of echo with. And what makes this phrase so irresistible is not the mystery it implies, but the truth it uncovers. Because deep down, we all carry this quiet hope, that we are not wandering through life disconnected, but destined to remember those we are meant to meet. But with. And when you say those words, you're not giving her meaning. You're uncovering it with. You're naming something she may have already felt, but not dared to say. But here's the paradoxes. With. You cannot say this phrase with the intention to make her feel something. You can only say it when you feel it. Otherwise, it becomes hollow, a mask, not a mirror. But when you feel it truly in your bones, in your breath, but with, it carries a strange kind of weightlessness, as if your soul is speaking directly to hers through the gaps between words. With, this isn't about destiny or romantic fantasy. It's about tuning into the deeper layers of reality that most people ignore. With, the invisible threads that bind our stories together in ways we can't always explain. When you acknowledge that, even softly, it opens something within her, because now she is not being flirted with. She is being recognized. And in that recognition, a kind of timelessness enters the space. But with, the conversation stops being about getting to know each other and becomes more like remembering each other. With, you find yourself drawn not forward, but inward, into the vastness of her and your own reflection within it. So say it gently with wonder, and then say no more. Let silence follow like a bow after a sacred note. Let the moment breathe, because love does not always arrive in fireworks. Sometimes, but with, it comes quietly, on the wings of a single phrase that remembers something both of you forgot to forget. It's easy to become obsessed with what to say, the right words, the perfect phrase, as though love were some safe locked with syllables and cleverness. But in truth, with the most powerful moments between two people often arise not in the speaking, but in the silence that surrounds the words. With, that's where everything truly happens. That's where truth lives untouched by language. You can offer her 1,000 poetic lines, but with, But if you speak them from a restless, performative place, she will feel the hollowness ringing beneath them with. Because it's not the phrase itself that captivates, it's the presence behind it. And presence doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It doesn't need to convince. Presence waits. It breathes. It listens without effort. And it lets silence carry its own sacred weight. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill it like it's some kind of void that will expose them if left unattended. But silence isn't emptiness. Silence is space, and space is where connection breathes. It's where the soul starts to recognize that it is not alone. You see, when you speak to a woman, or to anyone, really, what truly draws them in is not your vocabulary but your vibration. And silence, when held with calm awareness, amplifies that vibration more than any string of words ever could. It's like music. The notes are important, yes, but without the pauses, the music would be chaos. Without the space between them, there is no rhythm, no emotion, no meaning. Your conversation is no different. When you speak with her, let there be room. Room for the words to land. Room for her to respond, not just verbally, but emotionally, energetically. Let your silence be a mirror in which she sees herself more clearly. There's a deep, almost mystical quality in a man who is unafraid of silence. He's not trying to rush the moment or manipulate the outcome. He is simply there. And that, there-ness, is magnetic. It says, I am not trying to escape myself. I am at peace, even here, even now. That kind of stillness is rare, it's comforting, and it's disarming because it holds no demand. When you say something meaningful, like, I see you, or with you, I feel safe to be myself, or, there's something about you that feels familiar. Don't race to the next sentence. Just stop, but let it echo. Let the silence afterward stretch into something sacred, because that pause tells her more than the phrase ever could. It tells her you meant it. It tells her you're not here to perform. You're here to feel. And if she looks at you, but a little surprised, a little breathless, it's because she feels it too. She can sense the shift, that this is no longer casual conversation. This is presence. This is awareness. This is connection not being chased, but revealed. Even your breath matters. Breathe slowly. Let the quiet between words hold the fullness of your attention, because attention, real attention, is love in motion. And silence, but when wrapped in attention, becomes holy. There's nothing more irresistible than a man who doesn't fear the quiet, who doesn't rush to impress, who can look into the eyes of another being and simply be. Not because he doesn't know what to say, but because he knows he doesn't need to say anything more. So yes, say the phrase. Let the words fall from your lips like petals, but let the silence carry the scent, because in the end, it's not what you say that she remembers. It's the feeling that arose when you said it. And the feeling lives in the silence.